Ours is a story about real food. Real ingredients and real people. It's a story about being local and understanding how to go the extra mile for our customers. That means providing great food with great experience. We offer unique items in our stores that you can't find anywhere else. We sell local products for ultimate freshness and to support our community. We make those specialty, hard-to-find items easy to get. And we take time to turn our associates into experts. We do all these things because we know our customers are just as passionate about food as we are.
Hello everybody, welcome to Craft Lake City. My name is Chef Marcela Ferrinha. I'm with Harmons City Creek Cooking School. Welcome to my gluten-free baking shop. I'm very excited to teach this class for you all today, and I hope you get as excited as I am. So we're gonna make 3 recipes today. One is banana bread, the other one is sun-dried tomato and chive biscuit, and the last one is gonna be our chocolate chip cookie. We're going to start with our chocolate chip cookie today because this takes a little bit longer on the side of the dough because we need the flour to just absorb all the liquid, all right? So first of all, we're going to use half a cup of chocolate chips. I'm using here today Ghirardelli, the 60% cacao. And you can use the vegan chocolate too to make this cookie vegan. But if you don't want to use that, any chocolate would work. So instead of putting all the chocolate as is right now, I'm going to do just a little chop over here to make sure we have smaller pieces. I always like to do a little bit more chocolate than the recipe requires because I really love chocolate. So if you love chocolate as I do, you should put a little bit more. So, and if you want to double too, it's totally fine. You can definitely do that as well, okay? So I'm gonna chop a little bit. Just make sure you don't make a lot of mess in your kitchen, but if you're making a mess, it's fine because you're cooking, right? Okay, so finishing up over here very quick. It's just a rough chop. You don't need to go like super small. It's just gonna be good for you when you're mixing up your dough and then you have chocolate in every single bite of the cookie. So that's gonna be the best cookie for sure, and then giving a lot of moisture to it too, all right? Make sure you have a bench scraper right next to you because you're gonna use that as well. All right, we're going to measure our flour. I'm using the Bob's Red Mill almond flour today. If you don't know, this brand is really nice because they are 100% employee-owned company, and they do a lot of very nice donation things for charities and all of that, so it's pretty cool. We're going to do 18 ounces or 1 pound and 2 ounces of flour in a bowl. Let's put everything over here. If you want to just sift the flour too, you can. It's not required, but if you want to do that, you can as well. Okay. I'm gonna set this aside. What I like to do with my hands, I kind of just fluff it up a little bit in order to remove the lumps in here and be able to be mixing everything once you add the liquid to it, you don't have a lot of lump in the flour. And again, if you want to sift the flour too, it's fine. But if you want to find like the the very fine almond flour, that would help a lot as well, okay? And then I'm using 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I'm gonna put on the side right here. I'm using the real salt, the Redmond real salt. It's a local salt from Utah, so if you wanna try that, it's amazing. It's a pink salt. And then I also have 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And then I have 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm gonna put all that in here. And then the last dry item we have is xanthan gum. Xanthan gum is a binder, is a stabilizer for dressings, for doughs, if you're not using any eggs to it. Although it's not an emulsifier, what xanthan gum does just holds everything together in your recipe. So this way it won't separate, okay? So then here I have half a teaspoon of xanthan gum. So with that, I'm going to mix everything again by hand, making sure you're washing your hands before you do that if you don't have gloves, but even though if you have gloves, you wash your hands before, okay? I'm using gloves to make everything easier here, so I don't have to wash my hands like every single time I'm moving to a new one. All right, perfect. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to do 1 cup of olive oil, and then you can make a little space in the middle right here. Just dump your oil in there. And then we're going to add 2 cups of maple syrup. A lot of people ask me, it's like, wow, this is a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. I'm not gonna lie. But I promise you, it's gonna be amazing because cookies are amazing. And you know, you shouldn't be like super scary about having this once in a while. The problem is like if you eat this every single day, and yes, I would say, don't do that, but you know, otherwise it's totally fine. So we're going to start mixing this, making sure like you're scraping the bowl from the outside to the inside. And then you're mixing all of that, because this is gonna help you to remove all the lumps on the flour. And then you're bringing like from the outside bottom to the inside, okay? And when you get halfway through, like here, I'm going to add my chocolate. The reason I said about the bench scraper is because you don't want to scratch your knife against the board. It's going to be dull pretty soon if you keep doing that. I promise you, you do that at home. So with the bench scraper, you have a way bigger area, so you can put everything like just a couple times, and everything is right there in your bowl, okay? Another thing we're going to use here today is the Nielsen Messé vanilla extract. This is probably my favorite brand. It's not the cheapest one in the market right now, but it's so worth it because it's so concentrated that you can have like the tiniest bit you can add there, and it's going to be amazing flavor, okay? So I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of vanilla, just because I love vanilla. If you want to put less than that, you can, but you know, I like vanilla, so let's load with vanilla here. Okay, everything's mixed in the bowl. And just a curiosity, cookies were brought to the United States, I mean America in general, in the 1600s, but cookies are a creation of the Persian people. So we should thank them for inventing this amazing thing. All right, everything is mixed, and then we're going to set this aside for a minute to let the flour absorb, and then it's going to be easier for us to scoop that inside on the sheet pan, okay? I'm going to leave this just sideways here. Just going to grab another board, because we're going to do something savory right now. So now, we're going to make our biscuit, and I love biscuits because anything with a lot of butter is always amazing, right? Anytime has butter, it's good. And even better when you put flavor in it, like chives and cheese. So we're going to use a sharp cheddar here, and it's going to be super delicious, okay? So biscuits, we're going to have our ovens at 400 degrees. When we start baking that, you want to make sure you have these biscuits first in the oven and then you turn them down, because it's going to hold pretty well your temperature on that one, okay? So let me put another pair of gloves here. So we're going to do 1 and 3/4 cup of flour, gluten-free flour. Again, I'm using the Bob's Meal 101 flour. This is a very nice blend. I tried other ones and they kind of lump a little bit, so I really don't like that. If you want to try this, very great. Okay. Where did I put that? Oh, it's right here. Okay. So I have my sifter over here, and then we're going to sift the flour first, all the dry ingredients in the bowl. Okay. So 1 3/4 cup of flour. Let me just put this back in here. And then I have 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And then I also have pink sea salt, all in there. And again, we have xanthan gum, because we want to bind everything together. Make sure like everything is holding very nice and well. Gonna just do that right here as well. Put these things aside. Okay, now we're going to sift that, because then we don't want like these smaller pieces of flour right here. And then make sure you have cold butter when you're doing that. Again, with your bench scraper, you're going to use that to cut your butter. If you try to put this entire block of butter, it's going to be really hard for you to work. So what I like to do, the bench scraper is the best tool if you're baking, not only to decorate cakes, but like to clean your surfaces, to help you with the butter. I'm going to cut that in small pieces, like small cubes. And then I'm going to throw this in here, and then the rest of it. So it's 1/2 cup of butter with the dry ingredients. So now what are we going to do? You're going to pinch our flour with the butter. What's going to happen here is you're creating like a layer of fat on your flour, and it's going to be like a puffy pastry-like dough when you bake the biscuit. United States, we call biscuits like this very fluffy bread, but in other parts of the world, biscuits, they're very thin, like a cracker. So very interesting to see the difference of like the same name with different recipes for a lot of things, right? What is going to make this fluffy is how you do the flour. So again, keep pinching the flour with the butter, and you want to make sure you have that like very nice and crumbly when you mix everything else, okay? All right, so we're getting there right here. And that's why I said like for this one, you want to wear gloves, just because, you know, if not, the flour gets under your nails and it's just a pain to clean all that. Okay, so we're done with that, so we can remove our gloves. And then we're going to do a little bit of knife skills over here, because we're going to chop our chives. We want to make sure we have about like 3 tablespoons, and this bunch should give you that if you cut smaller pieces of it. So when you're chopping anything with a chef's knife, what you want to do, you want to pinch your blade and then use your other 3 fingers around the handle. That's the way you want to hold it, okay? You don't want your finger on top of the blade. You just want to pinch the blade, all right? So when you have that, you're going to use your other hand as a claw, and then your knuckles are going to be the ones guiding you to cut through the vegetable, the herbs, or whatever you're cutting, okay? And then you're going to tip down your knife, bring that towards you, and then move that away. And then you're going to do this circle movement all the way down in order to have very nice and even slices of it. Okay, All right, so make sure if you buy chives, make sure they are really nice and dry, because sometimes we tend to wash them before. We have to. These are already washed, just saying, okay? And we want to make sure they're pretty dry. So what you can do, just wrap them a little bit in paper towel. That will be good to go. So I'm going to do my chives in here in the bowl. Okay, all the chives in there. And then we're going to do half a cup of sun-dried tomato. Yesterday when I was shopping, I couldn't find the sun-dried tomatoes. So if you find the roast tomatoes, they would work as well. Again, I'm going to wear gloves because they are infused in oil. And another tip too, when you buy sun-dried tomato or roasted tomatoes, they have this amazing flavored oil that they are infused. Don't trash that. You can use that to cook and your food is going to be amazing. And if you want to use that for dressings as well, it will be super nice when you're dressing, okay? Like with that tomato flavor right there. So I'm going to drain this here. I'm not going to use this today, unfortunately, but you can use at home, all right? The same for olives. Don't ever throw away the syrup that comes in. I don't know how we call that syrup. Can't remember, but that syrup is nice if you want to substitute that for, instead of using salt, you can use that juice in your recipes, okay? All right, so now we have our tomato here. Again, we're going to just chop this a little bit fine. You don't want like big chunks of it because when you scoop, you want that all inside your biscuit. You don't want anything hanging outside, all right? Okay. All right. And again, we're going to use our bench scraper. Scrape the whole thing in here. It's very oily and makes a little bit of a mess. So I'm going to just take this off and then put that aside. All right, now the other thing we're going to use is cheddar cheese. I'm using Harmons sharp cheddar cheese, and if you haven't tried that, you should go run to the store and buy it, because this is one of my favorite cheeses, especially for this biscuit. Okay, and you don't really need a lot of equipment. You're going to do everything by hand, okay? So I'm going to use a microplane, just making sure microplane is the brand. So this is called zester, okay? And I'm going to zest my cheese or grate my cheese on top of it. I'm going to use this entire little block here. You can add more cheese if you like. If you don't want to add more, is fine. You can put as much as you want. So just because I love cheese too, I'm gonna put about a third of a cup, but you can put more than that. All right. Okay. And then when you scoop your biscuits, you can put the cheese on top of everything as well. All right. Yeah, the zesters are really nice to grate cheese too. Okay. Okay, I have that here. And then I'm going to just mix this a little bit so we can have this already incorporated, all the flavors right here. And again, make biscuits, you don't want to over mix. You want to have like a cottage cheese kind of look, because the butter is going to melt and it's going to be amazing, all that moisture in there. Now, we're going to add 2 eggs to it. So a lot of the times I see people cracking eggs. They usually do on the side of the bowl like this. You don't want to do that. Why is that? Because it shatters all the shell of your eggs, and then it breaks like in several parts. So with that, you don't want to do it. Usually you want to do on a very stable, like flat surface, like your countertop. So you just crack a little bit, and then you have your shell like split it in half. and then again right here. Another thing too, you don't want to crack your egg straight into your bowl when you're making like a cake or any batter in general or dough, because what happens is maybe your eggs are rotten and then you just lose a bunch of product right there. So put in a little bowl, like a side bowl, and then transfer that to the big bowl, okay? And then the last one we're going to do is 1/2 cup of milk. I already have milk over here. We just need to measure that in a measuring cup, and that's the liquid part of your recipe. So eggs right here and your milk. All right. Then we're going to mix that. And again, like I said, we're going to have that like a cottage cheese look like, making sure you have everything like fast incorporated but not over mixed. And because this flour is gluten-free, it's not going to develop any gluten to it, so which is super great. All right. Okay. So when you make this, and if your recipe is still a little bit like wet like this, what you can do is just add a little bit more flour. So this way you have that like in the right consistency. So I'm going to start maybe like 2 tablespoons of flour right here. And then you mix and should be fine. You see like how it dries out a little bit, and that's how we want it. Because if it's too wet, it spreads out too much. I think I can add a little bit more, just a tiny bit more. And then a little bit more of these. There you go. Okay. So when you have that, I'm going to use an ice cream scoop and then scoop everything on a parchment sheet pan. Oops, making a lot of noise over here. All right. And then you want to have, if you want to make bigger sizes, you can. I like them like this size just because, you know, like we kind of tricks our brains like, oh, I'm just having like 5. And you feel less guilty, all right, because they're really delicious. I promise you're gonna love this. And then as soon as they come out of the oven, you can put a little bit more butter onto it and serve with a little bit of coffee or tea or juice, whatever you want to do, that would work as well. Okay, so quick. And then finishing up here, you can tap them a little bit down so they are going to be more uniform and easier to bake. And then we're going to add a little bit of the cheese on it. All right, there you go. Okay, I'm gonna put this aside here and then grab my microplane again and just do the cheese on top of everything. It's gonna be beautiful color. All right. Oopsie, so this needs to be on top of it, not on the pan. All right, so finishing that. And then we're going to bake that at 450 in our oven, and they're going to look just like these beautiful ones over here after you bake them, okay? So I'm gonna set this aside. Oh no, let's just start baking this because I'm sure everybody wants to try that after here. Okay, so now I'm gonna put this aside as well, and then we're going to make our banana bread. Banana bread is really nice. It's one of my favorite because it's a little bit moist, it's like a little bit savory, it's a little bit sweet, and if you add nuts to it, it's even better. And I really like this bread, okay? Right before that, I just want to show you guys how the cookie dough is going to look like. It's still a little bit wet over here. Again, the same way we did with the with the biscuits. We can add a little bit more of flour. I'm gonna add just maybe a 1/4 cup to reduce a little bit of the moist on this thing again. And then I'm going to leave this on the side for a minute just to keep going. The flour absorbs a lot of the humidity of the liquid, okay? So I'm gonna leave it here for a minute. And now we're going to do our banana bread. It's my favorite part of it. You just put my gloves on and make sure I have the instructions here so I won't miss anything to tell you guys. Okay, so before we do anything, we need to prep our pan. I like to use the loaf pans because they turn out super nice when you cut, and then you can stack your bread just like that to make a nice look on your table. And you know, if you want to take a photo like I do, like every time I make food, I take pictures of it, so you have that for your record. So we're going to make like cover our pan with parchment paper. Sometimes people cut like the strips and then they put on the bottom. This way is way easier because you don't need to do like a bunch of stuff. All you need to do is just use your pan as a guidance, and then you're going to cut sideways like this. It's like an envelope type of thing we're doing here. And then over here. And oops, make sure you do all the 4 sides, all right? Then if you have a cooking spray at home, you just spray the whole thing. If you don't have spray, you can use a brush with some olive oil or melted butter. Make sure you spray nice and well, like it's really greasy on the bottom, so this way your paper is going to stick to that. I'm going to put my paper on top of everything and start adjusting that in the pan. And then the sides, you see what I'm doing here? Just folding the paper in a way that's going to cover the whole thing. And you have that easier to remove your cake when it's done. So when you have that done, you just spray the inside so these parts are stick to. Here and here. Then you can even cut the excess of paper right here. Okay. Just removing this. I know this is a lot of paper left over, but it's fine. All right. Now, we set this aside, because then we're going to use this in a little bit. I'm going to put this right over here. All right, now we have another bowl. And then first we're going to do, we have some butter right here. This butter is not too soft, but the best would be like soft butter. If you're using that, I'm gonna get another bench scraper right over here. And then I'm going to cut this again in pieces, because it's going to be easier to mix that, all right? Again, we're not going to use any fancy equipment or a mixer. We can do all this by hand, but if you want to use a mixer, that would do it too, okay? All right. Okay, there you go. All right, put everything there in the pan. And then with your hands, you're going to mix that with sugar. I have 1 cup of sugar over here. We want to have this a little bit creamy, all incorporated. The same way we did with the biscuits, we're going to pinch the flour, sorry, not the flour, the sugar in the butter to make sure everything is nice and incorporated right there. If you have a hand mixer, you can definitely cream that in your hand mixer, but if you don't, I don't have a hand mixer and I'm a chef. I have a KitchenAid, but sometimes I'm so lazy to get that and use all that equipment, and it's heavy, so I don't want to use it. So I prefer to use my hands. It's way easier. And you just need to wash 2 things, one and one, that's it. All right, instead of like attachment, a bowl, and clean the mixture. It's a pain, I know. All right, you see how it's coming? So it's becoming nice and creamy over here. And then now we're going to add 2 eggs. Okay, 2 eggs to it. Let me grab another spatula here and a whisk. So again, we're using our flat surface, then cracking our egg here, and the same for the next one. Oh, the skin is so thin. All right, I'm going to dump this here, and then I'm going to start mixing this all together. Make sure you do like a very nice, vigorous whisk in order for the egg to combine with the fat, which is the butter, because egg and butter, they kind of have a hard time getting together. So you have to whisk very nice to emulsify these 2 together, okay? So you see like it's getting nice and creamy. Beautiful. All right. Now we're going to do 3 bananas. If they're dark skin, almost like starting dark skin like this, even better, because they are way moist than the yellow ones or the green yellow ones. So you don't want to do that. You want to use these guys here. They're the best for banana breads. Again, I'm mashing them with my hands because you still want those chunks inside your batter. And then when you cut your banana bread, it's going to be super nice and moist inside. So I usually put 3 bananas, and it gives me like enough moist in my cake. But if you want to do 4 bananas, you're totally fine with that too, okay? If you want to mash them very nice and well. I'm going to put another one. And we're going to add our flour next. Oops, I have a big chunk right there. Okay. Ooh. Okay. All right. So I have one problem. This is live video. I forgot to measure the baking soda for you guys, and I apologize for that. But you're gonna add 1 teaspoon of baking soda to this batter, and then we have some salt, half a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna add it to here too. This happens, guys. It's like we're filming it, and then boom, we forgot something. But yeah, it's gonna look like that, and I promise you, it's gonna be amazing. So for this one, I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Again, if you want to put more vanilla, you are welcome to do it, okay? Just that there. The reason I don't measure the vanilla before is because vanilla usually has alcohol, and then the alcohol evaporates. So you want to keep that like measure as you go, okay? And then we're going to do 1.5 cups of flour. I'm gonna just mix this here. Before you add the flour, we're going to mix the banana with the butter and the salt, the vanilla, and the sugar to have this all nice and incorporated. Again, we're adding the liquid first, all the moist items first, and then you add the dry ones, all right? Okay. Okay, 1 cup and a half. And the last thing we're going to add is our walnuts. You don't have to add nuts if you have allergies or if you don't like nuts. I like nuts, and I'm sorry if you have an allergy because they're really amazing. But yeah, you can add like pistachios if you like. You can add almonds if you like. The most common one would be the walnuts, any nuts that would work, whatever you prefer, okay? Or pecans, the pecans are good too. Okay, all that here. All right, it's gonna be just like that. And then I have my walnuts over here. You can crack them if you like, smaller pieces. I like them like kind of chunky, but you can just dump it there. It's gonna be like more like a rustic cake. Then you mix everything. And again, don't forget the baking soda, all right? It happens. It happens with the best chefs. All right, cool. You're going to dump this in here. And if you're using parchment paper, you don't need to grease the parchment paper, all right? All you need to do is just grease the bottom of the pan, and you're good to go. When it's ready, it's gonna be super easy to remove that from your pan. And you have this beautiful, nice, it smells so good right over here. Okay, I like to tap my pan to kind of even everything out on the bottom. And then remove any bubbles in the middle, right there, okay? Okay, and then in the oven too for about 15 minutes at 350, okay? So now what are we gonna do? We're going to scoop our cookies and our biscuit. So if you're making cookies, if you want to make smaller cookies, you can. I'm using the 307 size for the scoop for the cookies, and they will spread it out like that big, like a super big cookie. If you want to do smaller, because you know it's going to yield more, you can use a smaller scoop as well. Okay, so just do about that big. I would do like 6 per tray because you don't want them to stick together, and it's fine because the dough is totally fine. It's gonna be just like that, a little bit spreadable, but once it bakes, it's gonna be amazing, and everybody's gonna love it. All right, and that's how it's gonna look like. And then you can keep going on your trays. Put that in the oven too for it's about like 10 to 12 minutes, depending on the oven. Yesterday when I baked mine, they were about 11 minutes, but depends on the oven in your home. If you have an electrical one, if it's a gas, it just depends. All right. So I think this is all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoy as much as I do. Sorry about the mistake in one of my recipes. I really forgot about the baking soda, but don't forget the baking soda, because if not, it's not gonna grow your bread, okay? If you have any questions, you can go to harmonsgrocery.com, send us an email if you have any questions about any of the recipes, and I hope to see you soon, all right? Thank you, have a wonderful day.